Okay, here we are basically. Wow, amazing, amazing, amazing Spider-Man. Wow. Eh, ah, eh, I didn't think it was going to translate the way in which we say it here properly, but well, here we are. Amazing. So, anyways, I guess it is yet another day of trying to do anything a little bit. Yeah, I want to get this out of the way as soon as possible because it would be a lie to say that there is nothing like that happening, and it is quite. I wouldn't know if intensely is the correct word because it is really there, but not like wow. There is a way in which you can avoid it. At least not to me. Um, dogs. It is incredibly cold, and because of that, I have an incredibly hard time properly waking up. I woke up at the usual time these last days, and getting out of bed is impossible when there is such a low temperature. I guess I I don't want to suffer the cold like that so much, but at the very same time, it is like an unavoidable thing, I guess, because you realize that it's there, so you need to deal with that somehow, and it is quite so far after like 2 hours or three, like today, it ends up passing. It isn't as cold anymore. Like for example, uh, these past 2 days, I think I I had even more cold than today, and that was quite hindering itself, yeah. But now, in comparison, it isn't like that intense, I guess. But it is quite complex to do anything when it is so cold. At the very least, I think I haven't had any particular problem with getting what they will say cramps. I didn't have any of those. I did have some problems with that before. I don't even know why, and now I don't have to deal with them so far. So that is quite good, quite yeah, quite a good news, I guess. But the point still remains of certainly I don't know if trying so hard to wake up early when indeed it is not so easy is going to be that useful. But yeah, anyways, the point is also here we are. We are in time. So with that I am more than happy. And yeah, very delight. I, I will scream, but they are still sleeping. So I can only offer you something like uh, I think the written was something like no. That is there will be bloodshed. I don't know where it lied. I don't remember rather, but yeah, I thought I was going to forget. I literally heard that song yesterday, I think. This is so sad. This is so over. But yeah, anyways, welcome, Abra. I hope you're doing well. Uh, and yeah. Um, the light, basically. What a weird thing. I really forgot about that one song. I guess yeah, I don't really hear it that much in general, so perhaps that can be an excuse, but I don't know. I would have said I was going to forget about it anyways, and I did, so here we are. Eh, No, I tried to remember. I really can't. I guess. Yeah, yeah. I somehow truly forgot about it. Like, damn, son. I didn't expect that. I certainly didn't even wish for that to happen to a certain extent, but here we are. I I will have to give it a new listening. I think it is. So yeah. Anyways, basically that's all. I I didn't say anything particularly surprising, so I I am here right now, simply making noises to extend the time for me to think about something else to talk about. That is the fun of being here. That no matter what is being said, it really doesn't affect anything else. But yeah, anyways, that that is that basically. Here we are. Yeah, I guess we're going to say, I will drink something, and after that we are going to switch onto something properly, onto a proper subject. I guess I do struggle still with finding any one idea, but at the same time, I do say that every single day, and I still can be here without any problem at all. So maybe it is true, maybe it isn't that true. It is more like a construct that one decides to keep in order to sustain their fallacies in life or whatever. So, anyways, as I was trying to say before, here we are. I don't know. I finally okay. I have a lot of things. I will focus only on one. Sorry. I finally finished not reading, listening to this compilation of kind of. I think the best way to describe them will be a mix between interviews and dia- dialogues that happened between s- a figure that was like a poet and a philosopher of Spain and one of the most highly regarded interviewers of its time, and it was quite a wonderful experience because if there is something that I always enjoy, it is in having the possibility of hearing something that by itself is meaningful enough that without needing any other kind of cue, you can already make up enough images about what is the idea itself, let's say. And to which degree it happens is to the point to which you can realize and you can understand the proper message of what is being typed about itself, based not just on the topic at hand, but also on the whole context of what is being created within the words and the whole universe that gets made by the descriptions that are used in place for the simple sentences that are strung together, and it becomes quite a charming opportunity to hear all of that because you realize then, at the very least in my case, that there is a certain beauty within the deepness of what gets said that can't be in any way replicated, I feel like. And all of that isn't only entertaining, let's say, interesting, but it's also quite surprisingly beautiful to behold because it opens up also to the possibility of discovering and the rejoicing, let's say, in something that contains a little bit more of the knowledge that you sometimes can't even fathom inside of the mundane life, let's say, because most of most of what was being discussed, particularly in what I watched, wasn't really new, let's say. It is the constant dialogue between what is already known and what could be considered as the continuation itself of the many branches that exist within the life that are quite surprising to be capable of beholding yet again. Because it isn't that they fall off, but rather that we change our perspective enough to not be capable of observing once again the whole tree for what it is. And it is in the process of allowing yourself to swap perspectives that you realize yet again that there were some things, some, in this case, simply concepts that were worth enough remembering. And I guess it is quite a hard thing, let's say. Also, hello, Malkut. I would say good morning. I don't really know if it is good morning for you, but welcome. I can say that. Welcome. I hope you're fine. Here we are, simply talking, I guess, so far. Um, but yeah, I was saying, I I was watching, or I finished watching, rather, this set of, I guess, for the convenience of everybody, interviews. They weren't really interviews, they were more like a dialogue. And basically, that I was saying it was very interesting to behold them and to be capable of learning from them because you also gain quite a lot of extra views, let's say, not because they are being absorbed from what you're beholding, but rather because you can, by hearing somebody else, you can sometimes refloat what is it that you already have in mind and that sometimes you forget you already thought about. Because, yeah, it is kind of weird in that sense. You realize, at the very least in my case, that there are quite a lot of things that you have thought about that somehow, just by living your life without any proper attention, you end up forgetting, and not things that you should be forgetting because they are meaningless, but rather because those ideas sometimes require so much energy to upkeep that you truly forget. You truly end up losing the sight of them, and as a continuation of that, you truly end up not even having the possibility of holding them inside of your mind, like everybody should probably do, in terms of those healthy views on things that end up at the end of the day driving you towards better decisions. And all of that is quite, yeah, quite amazing in this case. By observing somebody else's discussion of any kind, quite amazing to regain. It ends up being one of the biggest benefits of hearing somebody like that because it had a lot of ideas. There were there were 13, let's say, interviews or chapters instead of the whole segment of the interview. It was a 10-hour video itself, and it was quite an extended discussion about a plethora of things, let's say, and all of them, at the end of the day, once again, end up simply, in one way or another, reawakening that initial spark of a concept that you have. Don't drive anybody towards the complete discovery of anything. I don't think on a personal level, I don't think I went, heard all of that, and came out on the other side, as they will say, a completely renewed human being, but rather it simply is sometimes, once again, there are ideas that get buried, or how do you say it? Buried between or deep inside oneself, and all of that. Once you realize that they do serve a purpose instead of what is life and instead of what is having them, becomes quite not just annoying but rather quite harmful itself. and quite, I feel like at the very least, quite perplexing to see that you have lost once again, because once you can realize, and once even more you can accept that they are indeed good for you, it is that you discover that there was something that you shouldn't have lost sight of, let's say, and sadly it is incredibly common for that to happen. But I, yeah, certainly. Uh, Certainly, it is always good to be capable of bouncing off ideas and be capable of always having that type of conversation with others. It is always a benefit, but sometimes that's also part of what I try to mean. That sometimes you don't even need to be having yourself a conversation with the rest. It is in hearing what other people are talking about that you can remember what is it that you have. In this case, I say remember. In other occasions, certainly, you do discover better concepts and better ways in which you can envision something and in which you can adopt new ways of thinking, let's say, in order to keep yourself alive, or yeah, certainly in a safe position. Let's establish, and all of that is possible also to reach without you needing to be particularly the main interactor with somebody else. Just in, yeah, it isn't something that gets properly discussed, I will say. The possibility of being an observer sometimes already is more than enough in terms of all this realm of possibilities gained, and the potential that gets already given to you, or that gets, I don't I want to say secreted onto you, but at the same time I feel like it is kind of not the proper word, that you can absorb, let's say, from simply watching. It isn't even a necessity, once again, that you are the main interactor or whatever. Simply watching is already rewarding, and simply being capable of holding inside of inside of yourself what is that other people talk about gets you to discover all of those things. And it is that possibility, that enticing chance, in my case, I will describe it as that should be more pursued. I will describe it. I will believe. Certainly, there were quite a lot of things once again that were talked about, and one of them was in in not in this world. This set of interviews was from like 20, 30 years ago, I think, and all of them certainly do have a side in which you can say humanity itself has lost the possibility of properly considering things and properly observing the world as something that is more than just a mess. Certainly, it is quite horrible even to find out that somebody has lost their spark because you have realized that they don't properly indulge in all of these type of activities that feed the soul. Let's say that allow you to make a more logical view of the rest of the universe that is around you, and all of those things. At the end of the day, once they are put in a proper order, end up quite helping everybody, and end up, I will say, because the problem is it is so broad how good they can be that they can certainly, if used for the right amount of time, they can be more than good enough in order to move anybody towards any kind of good direction. Let's assume that can be by itself already fulfilling, and it is something that we lack in nowadays world, certainly. And it isn't like by itself it isn't understandable. There are more than enough reasons as to why there will be a need to have something like that, and there is also more than enough of an understandable degree of explanations, I guess, as to why things like the acceptance of the necessity of certain things is there. All of those things is quite explained, but it isn't fully, I believe, understood in terms of how is it that one approaches these things. Because I mean, in in a in an objective level, we have already given enough explanations to most of the phenomena of the daily life, and we have already given more than enough of a, yeah, of a proper view of all the things that happen in nowadays world, and we see all of that, and we believe we have made sense out of this reality, because to a certain degree it is true, but at the same time we don't really have an understanding ourselves. It doesn't really matter if we, as a whole society, let's say, know how to live a healthy life because we have all of the knowledge saved somewhere. What matters is being able of using all of that in our own existence and not in our as a general society. Once again, it is rather the responsibility of every single one individual to do something along those lines and to be capable of executing said desires even, because once you can put that into a proper desire, I believe it becomes more like a fully automated task, I will say. Once you can realize how necessary it ends up being for anybody to have a proper view on life, once you can realize how useful it ends up becoming for whoever is it that gains the possibility of wishing the world to be a better place, once you can believe that all of that could and will happen, it is then that you finally gain the notion of, and certainly, there is something worth about existence, let's say, and there is something worth about doing what we do, not because it is simply a life that we have and that we need to carry on, but rather because the whole thing of what gets called life is composed by so many sides that have finally made sense, that it is now something I can finally use. But once again, sadly, it is the most superficial theory what I am talking here uh, of notions, and it certainly can't be. I, at least with the tools that I have in my hands right now, I don't think even in 5 or 10 hours I will be capable of explaining all of that in a fully comprehensible way. Sadly, there is this degree of conversations about said topics that pertain to the soul and whatnot that indeed require more than a little bit of understanding from the minds of those who are on the other side, not because it is an advanced idea, but rather because it's simply something that has quite a lot of development by itself. And because you can see it as that, you also can realize that indeed sometimes you don't have that, and sometimes you can't use all of that to gain any kind of proper traction, let's say, towards the understanding of the rest of the idea that is being talked about. So yeah, it it needs, at least so far, it has the necessity to stay the most lukewarm degree. I will say it. I will describe it as it isn't really that that deep or new, what I am saying here. I will describe it as once again. But yeah, it is still, even if it doesn't have that, it doesn't need it. Anyways, the important thing is, I started that whole discussion or that whole monologue, I guess, with I simply watched that and it was quite wonderful. It is once again the opportunity to hear somebody give you a reminder about all of the ideas that you have about the world feels good enough. And I will say probably if I had to give it a final word, it will be quite a beautiful experience to be capable of doing the very same thing oneself, because there was a certain degree of poetry that was being used throughout the whole conversation. There were, as I said before, there were sentences that were strung together that made up imaginary pictures more beautiful than everything else. There were things that were said that got extracted simply from the realm of the dialogue into a more artistical form of a construct that ended up conveying not just a little bit of what can be called an idea, but rather the whole side of understanding now that there are very good things, let's say it like that, or very amazing things to discover in life. That was most of those descriptions at the very least. There were sadly some very gruesome ones, but at the same time, as the whole conversation itself developed, some of those don't even need to be that um, negative, I guess, to truly feel like something bad or whatever. Also, welcome, Crespian. Here we are. Quite, yeah, I guess quite honestly, finishing the topic. Certainly, I was simply talking about what I finished consuming. Um, and yeah, but basically that has been so far everything that happened. I hope you're doing well, and basically that. Welcome. Here, here we are. I guess simply saying stuff, simply communicating ideas, nothing extraordinary. And yeah, or well, I mean, I know it is kind of meta, but at the same time, I know it is kind of extraordinary because the ordinary stuff isn't doing something like this, at least on this platform. So, to a certain degree, it is extraordinary, but not it by itself for us we are already accustomed to do that thing literally almost every single day. So, yeah, it isn't really extraordinary. It is just another day, I guess, in the fields of life or something like that, you know. But yeah, basically that. I don't know. I guess the idea ends up being something along the lines of certainly learning is quite wonderful, and even more, being capable of using all of that knowledge for something useful is even better. The problem is, I guess, always how can you describe something as useful or not without even knowing how you yourself can use it, and how, even more, you have the certainty to try anything out if there might be always an underlying possibility of perhaps what I try out isn't really good or beneficial to anybody. That is always a question that exists in life, I guess, but it doesn't really have to be that negative, I feel like, at least not today, let's say. Not, yeah, not today. It isn't. There is always this side of the concepts that we think about, in which you can pay attention to that shadow that exists there, that does, yeah, that does keep whispering inside of our ears, let's say, that makes you approximate quite negative stuff, but on the other hand, you don't really have that many other things that are as fulfilling or even more on the opposite end as that in mind so much, because the other kind you need to go for. And also, that is an incredibly good reminder, Crespian. I have to remove that. I forgot. I wanted to leave that, but things happened, and now Twitch is going to ban karaoke supposedly. So yeah, I will have to remove that one. Do I have a way to see the redeems easily, or do I need to go inside of the whole setting stuff? I think there was a way, right? Polls, rewards, rewards. Here it is, right? Uh, edit. Okay, that is. But yeah, basically, on a quick note, while I changed this thing, I I wanted to have that up without really paying attention, but it beautifully happened that uh, Twitch decided to change its TOS terms of services. So there you go. If it wasn't for you, I would probably have kept it until it ended or until somebody else redeemed that and made me like, what? What are you doing? What? And basically that. So yeah, anyways, there it is. I I did forget about it. I shouldn't have forgotten. I did forget. But anyways, there it is. Thank you. Changed slash removed. In the lastest patch, we have removed the challenge fund the next karaoke. So yeah, basically sadness, I guess. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't feel that much anything. Certainly, it isn't really that bad. After all, we had a like 4 years of 5. I don't know, since Twitch started basically, that you could use the whole karaoke stuff without any problem whatsoever, or with the tiniest degree of problems at the very least, and it wasn't in any particular way something bad, so I don't really have something to complain about in that sense, as in, wow, it was so short lasting or something like that. It simply it simply happened that everything that has a beginning also has an end, and it was quite it is always quite problematic, the whole copyright thing. But yeah, at the same time, at the very least, we had some weeks in advance, not even days, weeks in advance to know about that and be capable of preparing to accept that it is going to, let's say, be a lost privilege or something like that. So yeah, it makes sense from my standpoint, I guess. But anyways, because I also wanted to leave this one here, this there it is. It doesn't mean that there won't be at the very least one last karaoke. There it is. I tried to not really mention that because, as always, it is like a minimal contradiction to talk about all of that. But there it is. On a quick note, there it is. The final one happening Friday 13th. 30? 13th? 30th? What? Yeah. Uh, I don't know how to say it. Friday the 30th. It is Friday the 30th at like 11 p.m. EST. Thank you. But yeah, anyways, that's that I guess, and also three. What? Anyways, completely. Anyways, yeah. Give me a second. I will finally, now that I have stopped talking, I will drink some water and do something else. Give me like one moment. Thank you. So, anyways, here we are. We we have survived so far. So that's quite excellent, I guess. But it is our time to say something else. So I don't know. I guess trying to change into something else. I guess the pursuit of knowledge is quite a weird thing always. It always has that a degree of uncertainty in which you certainly don't know exactly what you need to consume in order to find out about the rest of the world, let's say, properly. And it always is something quite. I guess I would personally describe it as awesome to find out that sometimes, even in the least expected of the places, or in those in which you would by yourself say there is nothing to truly gain, even there is some potential to find out something good and beneficial, and something quite certainly positive to have. But all of that is, at the very same time, one of the reasons as to why it can be said that it is annoying to try and have any kind of, not simply drive, rather any kind of true desire for these things, because it makes sense once you start to see the experience that everybody has with the search of knowledge, that people does give up in that sense, because it is too annoying to try and drive around the fields of knowledge, let's say, and too complicated to try and find out about a proper way in which you can get the upper hand in terms of comprehension about what is it that you are trying to learn about. And there are, even in the exact sciences, quote unquote, even in those, there are quite a lot of problems about how you exactly arrive at the proper understanding of something. And even in those places, there are still ways in which you will have negative consequences without even being capable of foreseeing that they might happen based on the assumptions that you made by the faulty knowledge that you possess, that was, let's say, impossible to check before those consequences themselves happened. All of that is quite a problematic thing. Once again, I said on the exact sciences where it supposedly is all measured. So, how much more all of that is incredibly disturbing will not be the word. It is something more along the lines of obnoxious to have happen on one's life, in the daily life, in the daily existence, let's say. All of that is quite an annoyance. Um, and also, good morning or good evening, Savannah. I hope you're doing well. Uh, but I don't know. I feel like it doesn't really learning about the problems that exist within the sets of knowledge itself should be a reason as to why you might want to stop. It certainly doesn't work that way because it rather is like, yeah, if I had to say it in a different way, I guess, you can learn from observing enough that there are moments in which the act of being capable of recognizing that something went wrong is also by itself a discovery that leads to an even better understanding of everything else. And there is even a saying in the world of sometimes some of those biggest discoveries that we had as as a whole humanity came only after troubles happened before them. So it supposedly is good to have problems and all of that, but it goes a little bit beyond that. I don't mean it is necessary to fail. It certainly is necessary to fail, but rather it goes more along the lines of once you can recognize the necessity of so many of the things that will happen in any kind of process, the problem is if you say process, the main thing that comes to mind is something more automated, what in general I simply mean the process of life, not any one particular thing. I will say, if I had to pin it down in any one area, the creative processes that anybody might have when they want to make something out of what they know and what not, but at the same time, it doesn't happen only there. In any kind of process that one goes through, the capacity to recognize what is truly happening and the capacity to be a proper observer, kind of tying back to what I said before, there is this degree of understanding in which you can learn simply from being there, realizing what is properly happening in front of you without meaning that you are interfering in any way. It is the act of contemplating the world, that leads you to a better capacity to act within it, let's say. And all of that is quite a necessary tool and something that, if I would like to know, I believe it is quite lost. I say it with doubt because I wish for that to not be true. I do expect that to be a falsehood, something that can be easily proven wrong, but at the same time, curiosity itself isn't really found in somebody who calls themselves mature nowadays. It got since long ago even relegated to the realm of childishness, let's say, and it is only something that somebody who is quite on the opposite end, immature can have. You can't be too curious because it is something that certainly makes you be an inappropriate human being of your age, let's say. If you have too much curiosity, you certainly can't have too much interest in anything because it makes you seem like a weird person with ulterior motives or anything like that. So I I do not believe it is fully something that we have understood. It is the knowledge that we supposedly have about a tool that does exist in life that we can't truly utilize, not because it is impossible to use, but rather because we have somehow made it seem like having that being used by itself in our life would make it a detriment on the rest of our existence somehow. And I don't know if I like that concept. I no, yeah, being honest, I wouldn't even enjoy hearing somebody else say something like that with conviction. It feels horrible to say it by itself because, once again, it is a possibility that is always there and it feels quite idiotic to negate that it happens and that having it happening can even be considered necessary. I Yeah, I kind of don't know in that sense, but I guess it is simply the fate that I am wrong that remains in that sense. That maybe curiosity is getting slowly but surely reestablished as something necessary in life, I guess. But I don't know. I Yeah. While talking, I also keep obviously going into the ideas, the memories that I have, and I don't truly find something that tries to establish being somebody avidly interested in the rest of the outside as something necessary. Even those who try to say something along those lines tell you that you need to exert caution and that you need to be always on the lookout for what truly is meaningful to understand and what not. And there is always this underlying tone of perhaps you will miss what is truly important if you pay attention to everything. And I, I think yeah, I might be going too fast, but I think the proper thing to say here is we have kind of lost the battle there. We That spark of interest, once again, that wonder with which you can look at the world by being young, it has been kind of extinguished in the modern, mature society, I guess. But yeah, to a certain degree, we're kind of fighting that back at the very least. Once again, always the happiness of knowing that even somebody like me, somebody like us, let's say, I hope nobody truly believes that they are incredibly special. I hope there is nothing being hard there when I say something like that. That people completely normal like us can understand and can have the possibility of talking about something like that is already good enough, I guess. And it's always useful enough to have in life itself because it does show that there is still time to try and save that. I don't know, though I will say that I as a as an important note at the end of the page, let's say, I don't know if it is truly useful to simply say, yeah, and there is time, and because of that, we will never discuss about this because somebody else might have the possibility of taking care of that. I don't think so. That is uh, the unending story, you know? So it is kind of a lie to say that it is fine to ignore that. That, wow, yeah, I we have time. There is nothing else to do. There is nothing else to worry about. But it is better to ignore, I guess. Sometimes it is better to say, yeah, somebody else will take responsibility of that. And if you ask me who I am, I can only tell you that I am me. No, I don't know. I certainly don't know. I guess a proper description of that will be something along the lines of I am somebody who is here today trying to give any kind of interesting idea to whoever wishes to hear, let's say. That is who I am. Uh, in the shape of a potato, because even a potato can sometimes make sense out of the world. So, how much more that can happen inside of you yourself, you know? Something like that, something along those lines. Also, welcome, Danaos. I hope you're very well, my my Greek brother. What happened? I kind of beat the fever. I kind of was capable of getting over it, kind of, but at the same time, I am still dealing with the aftermath of having to eliminate all of the remaining mucus, something like that. I guess. Yeah, yeah. Right now, I am fine. I stopped having. The most important thing is I stopped having fever itself. I didn't have any more feverish hallucinations. That is. No, 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 no. Right now it is fine. I think it should be around like 36. I I rest in that 36.2, I think it was the last time I took it. But in general, you can also feel when you're good. So I feel good. And yeah, nice to calm you down if that is helpful. And thank you for caring, Danaos. It was quite a weird thing, let's say, to yeah, it is always kind of annoying to be sick because there is this possibility of, as it happened there, have fever. And when I do have fever, I also do have a little bit of feverish hallucinations, sadly. So I can't really remember even what happened fully when I was sick. Yeah, now that I look back, I think nobody even pointed that out for me. But now that I look back, I don't even remember what I did those days. I know I streamed because I remember, for example, the house, uh, but I don't even remember what I did those days. So, yeah, anyways, the point isn't that. The point is that we're fine. So, life is good, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. We will ignore that tiny time lapse that I have inside of my internal narrative, I guess. What a beautiful thing. What a nice thing. Anyways, we were before I I lose my mind. We were simply talking. That's what has been happening so far. About yeah, you properly saw it, and it also properly got bonked slash permanently banned. Sadly, it sadly happened. I am so sorry for our dear bot, but it happened. I guess. Ah, but yeah. Anyways, I was I was going to say, let me drink water. That's what I was going to say. I will drink some water, and after that, I will see what I can properly say because I have no idea. Well, we only have like 10 more minutes or so. I mean, I should probably go out and check. I have heard noises in my house, so maybe I can end it a little bit later today, maybe. But anyways, so oh my god, that was cold. I wanted to say, continuing, or not really continuing, because I certainly did finish what I was saying before. I It is kind of weird to watch things in general because a lot of times you realize that there are a lot of messages. I, I believe, at the very least, I tell myself, ideas that are silently there, let's say, kind of inserted inside of the other nature or the other more observable nature of what you are observing, let's say. Instead of all of that, you realize that there are some nice things and there are some nice and certainly interesting things that can be indeed denominated as the secondary degree of concepts and secondary degree of ideas that you can observe and whatnot. And all of that is always, while on one hand interesting to watch, kind of weird to realize, as I was trying to say at the beginning, because sometimes it doesn't really feel like what one can observe is truly the underlying reason that needs to be extracted, if there is any particular need, from any kind of labor that we observe, from any kind of work, sorry, that we observe. And to a certain degree, it is kind of hard to properly put it into words, even because you are you are watching something that doesn't really mean what it means, while at the same time doesn't even fully convey the meaning and the full extent of what you are trying to get, what you are trying to comprehend, let's say. And no, it isn't Alejandro. I think it is more. Once again, it is more of an Spanish name that. And no, it isn't Alejandro. Uh, but basically, it's. I always had the problem of that. I always had that underlying annoyance because you can realize that all of those things are there. And no, it isn't Sancho nor Ramiro, uh, but at the same time, it is like understanding the proper meaning of something sometimes is quite impossible because we can't put ourselves in the place of whoever made a work of any kind of of other people, I guess. Uh, so yeah, yeah, you can keep trying. You will probably not get it. Don't worry. But the problem itself isn't that you can't. I believe you can't get what is properly there, but more along the lines of, is it really necessary sometimes? I feel like most of the time, not always, it isn't really something that gets made with the intention of you need to fully get what is happening. It is simply like well, at the very least in nowadays world, no? Um, an entertainment of sorts that gets made just to get you entertained. If you get any kind of idea out of that, it works. If it doesn't, it 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 doesn't serve you in any kind of way. And that's that, I guess. And also, yeah, it is kind of a thing, let's say. It is kind of that thing that always exists there, but I will say personally, I prefer to ignore that. And to get to you, eh, I, I had a little bit of something that I did discover very recently, even uh, instead of I think it was instead of a part of Catalonia, there were a lot of philosophers, something like that, like um, Anaxagoras and a lot of the Roman Empire was instead of Spain also. So there are quite a lot of names that you could derive from there. Not that you will get it right, but that are also very related to Spanish people. That is the quick note, I guess, that I had in my mind about that. But no, still none of those. Uh, but yeah, I kind of said before. It feels like sometimes you do have yeah, most okay. Most of the empire was completely on Greece, uh, but there was I will need to go back and watch the whole video. I don't even remember where, but there was this one guy who talked about how there were a lot of big influences living there in that part of Spain, and most of those names are very well known. Like the problem is, I personally don't even know philosophers that much. I barely. No, yeah, I know that Plato was the Roman emperor. Certainly, certainly he will be living in Rome. I will be surprised if the emperor wasn't in Rome. But yeah, I Plotinus, Plotinus. I don't even know Plotinus, but I love learning stuff that I don't even know about. I will probably have to search out who is Plotinus. But yeah, I I do know that most of them were from Spain. There is still a degree of people that wasn't from Spain that had a lot of ascendancy, no, descendants that had roots to the later known. No, did I say roots? I said descendants, basically, that are related in some way or another to the Spanish people, but the problem is, once again, I don't know properly to tell you who they were. Um, yeah, also Aurelius, who was important. Yeah, yeah. I do know about all of those people, and I do know that they were from the Roman Emperor. But once again, there were some that weren't from Spain that had kind of Greek names. I think we're getting into history. The problem is I don't know history, but it was something along the lines of I think when the Roman Empire was falling, a lot of those who fled from Greece or from what is known nowadays as Greece ended up in one of the provinces of Spain, something along the lines of I remember it was like Catalonia, but I think it was Sevilla. I don't know how do you say it in English. Sevilla, something like that. But that is why I say there was people very much closely related to them there. The problem is also how do you say the name, because personally I don't remember them, so I'm sorry, but I have failed today the task. But anyways, also I heard a phone ringing like 2 times already. I will need to go check. Please, give me a second. Okay, we'll have to make it quick. Nothing really out of the ordinary, nothing particularly surprising, like just the daily life of family, I guess. But it does mean that I will have to call it to an end, I guess. That's everything that happens for today. That let's say like this responsibility calls. So yeah, we'll have to go and deal with that. From my side, I have nothing else to add. We did what we could with all the time that we had in our hands, I guess. So yeah, that's that basically. But I will have to leave. So yeah, uh, basically that. But anyways, at the very least, I guess I am happy with having been here. So nothing really else to add. I am more than content just with having been right now present. So thanks for everything. But it also is necessary for me to make a quick disappearance, I guess. So yeah, thanks for everything. But it must end. It must find itself finishing, I guess. So, as always, we need we don't have particularly an express need like oh my god, we do it out of what is it, out of being so accustomed to it, I guess. We're going to write things. So where, how, why, who, person who is um, playing Hunter Showdown, that is where we are going. Thanks for everything. But I have to leave. Sorry. I mean, at the very least, we got some time here. Tomorrow, probably, if I wake up in time, it will be a different story, perhaps. But anyways, as always, thanks for everything. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching the world. Thanks for being here. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for working. Thanks for every single thing. It was quite an amazing time. And yeah, we will see when we get the next opportunity. But until then, have a nice one. Have a good one. And yeah, keep yourself safe. Be happy. Be meaningful. Be nice to other people. Do whatever you need to do. Be responsible. All of those things. Now it's my time to say goodbye. But more important, nothing else matters right now. Where we are going into person who is playing hand showdown. Goodbye, people.